In hyper-casual games, how long do you think that it takes to reach a revenue of $5 million? My name is Moria, and I'm head of publishing at CrazyLabs. I'm working at CrazyLabs for almost 7 years, and I think that I worked in almost every studio that we had. And to be honest, since I started hyper-casual publishing business, I think this was the actual time when I really fell in love with my work. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. So what are we gonna have today? I'll tell you a little bit about CrazyLabs and the ecosystem of hyper-casual, and we'll deep dive into why this is the right time to go hyper. And I'll tell you about our latest success story I can paint. We'll also have some time for Q&A, so feel free to type your questions in the chat. Okay, so CrazyLabs is a top 5 with over 3.5 billion downloads and over 100 million unique monthly active users. We have offices in Tel Aviv, Skopje, Shanghai, Luoyang, Kiev. So if you're also searching for your next job, that might be a good opportunity to find it here. We are a developer as well as a publisher. We are crazy and we're working in labs. We have 3 labs, the casual lab, the hyper casual lab, and we also have a top secret lab that might even find a vaccine for coronavirus. So stay tuned. Let's do a short recap about hyper casual. These are free to play. Anyone can play those games anywhere, anytime, and these are short, satisfying with mass appeal, and usually have one finger mechanic. Do you see this video? This is what I feel that's happening in the mobile gaming in the last 6 months. And I think that one of the reasons why I fell in love with my job even more was the fact that hyper-casual games are mostly played by non-gamers. And I am a non-gamer, and there, I said it. That's why playing a game that I can immediately know how to play, and I can play for 20 seconds and throw my device away, this is the game for me. It turns out that there are a lot of non-gamers and they are playing mobile game. You can see constant increase in downloads in mobile gaming in the last years. I think it's related to the fact, and in the past few months, that we are just bored and stuck at home for so long. Or maybe it's because we're just, tired scrolling social networks. And then we see a cool ad, very cool game that just caught our attention. I believe that most of you know that mobile gaming download growth in the last 6 months by 40%. And when you also look at the Sensor Tower Q2 report, you can see the spike year over year in both stores in downloads. It's no doubt that during the first and now second wave of coronavirus, I felt luckier than ever that I'm working in the mobile gaming industry. The game that we released just since the pandemic started itself made over 120 million downloads. When looking at top publishers and top downloads charts, it's clear that 7 or 8 top games out of 10 are hyper-casual games. So it's around 70%, 70-80% of top charts are hyper-casual games. It's true that in revenue, hyper-casual makes only 5% of game revenue. But when it comes to downloads, we're already talking about around 12%. And thank you, Iron Source, for this data. So now that we understand that hyper-casual is the best party in town, I'd like to explain to you how you can make your first steps in this genre with very little resources and maybe try to form a new line of business to your studio. It doesn't matter if you're indie or work for hire or other type of gaming studios. This talk is for everybody. If these were regular days, the big studios were working on the giant licensing games for the Hollywood productions, making games for brand, or just regular work for hire jobs. But during these crazy days, very talented studios are in a state of uncertainties, and some of them are even standing idle. So there might be an opportunity here for talented people from the industry to take their first steps in hyper-casual with minimum risks. I think that the best combination of talent would be one game designer, one developer, and one artist. It can be one developer that knows how to do everything, by the way. I heard that a lot of studios, when they have time between projects, they give their developers or talented people some time to work on a dream project or their own ideas for the studio. Usually these games doesn't meet the store. So I'm saying if you have some free time and talented people, why not trying hyper? Hyper-casual development starts with some feasibility tests. When you or your publisher have a great idea for a game, the first thing you should ask yourself is, do people want to play my game? So we'll start from a CTR test when you want to test the click-through ratio of the game. So you're just making an ad for the game. So you're more of an ad director than a game developer at the beginning. You want to see how many people clicked on your ad. Once you know that people are clicking on the ad, you will go and move to CPI test and see if they are also installing the game. Only then you will actually get into production. You need to actually start developing the game, and the next step will be that you will test day one retention. You want to see that people are playing the game and they're coming back the day after. We're at CrazyLabs. Once we will test the retention, then we will add our SDK with our ads and start to measure the average revenue per user. Only then we will go on scale test to see how well the game can scale and eventually go on a worldwide launch for everybody to download the games. I think that this process really helps you stay focused and save resources. So I'm not saying that if you passed CTR test, you are on the highway for success. But at least you know that you didn't waste too much time and you stayed focused. Now, let's try to compare two different games from two genres. One is casual, one is hyper-casual. Let's say those two were released at the same time. The hyper-casual game took around 8 weeks to produce, while casual games take sometimes 18 months to produce. On a hyper-casual game, you only need 3 people at tops to work on the game, while in casual games, you will need sometimes 15 people to work on it. At the same time that hyper-casual game will make 60 million downloads, a casual game can do 20 million downloads. Of course, I'm not saying that these huge games can be extremely profitable because they can have way higher LTV. But what I'm trying to say is that in this time, when you are trying to minimize the risks, I'm suggesting try to work on shorter iterations and minimize the risk and soften the risks for you. As always, you know, we have the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. So we'll start with the best case scenario. You have an idea that you like. Start working on it, making the video. It will take you 1 or 2 weeks to create a video. Then you test it and you see if you're in a good direction or not. Then you go on a CPI test, and from there, you know the process. So within just 2 to 4 weeks, you know that if you have a good idea in your hand or not. In some of the cases, publishers even cover the production expenses like we do. In the worst case scenario, you had an idea, you made a video, you iterated, you failed. So what I'm saying, just throw the bad idea away and start all over again. You only wasted like 2 or 3 weeks tops. That will really, really makes you stay focused. Now, let's look at it from a different angle. Remember the $5 million revenue. I'm saying that talented studios that have great ideas or used ideas that publishers gave them can also reach those success in short times. For example, Soap Cutting was made by Firescore Interactive. They tried, they nailed it on the 3rd try. 3 people worked in the game and it reached revenue of $5 million in just 12 weeks. ASMR Slicing, they failed with 4 games in the beginning and they nailed it on the 5th game that they tried. And 3 people worked on it, it reached $5 million revenue in 7 weeks. Tie-Dye, they nailed it on their 3rd try. Five people worked on it and it reached 7.5 weeks. It took them to reach $5 million. And you can also see that Amaze team reached $5 million revenue in 8.5 weeks. So I'm saying that it takes time sometimes and a lot of failures to reach these success stories, but I'm also trying to say that with a good, talented team and a good idea, you can really make it in a short time. But I want to remind all of us that even when you have a great idea, you always need to remember that what will hold you with a good game that will have a long enough life to make money is you have to have a good core for that. A good core will surprise you every time you will play it. It will make you want to come back. And I gave this example of tie-dye. In this video, the only thing that you see is the core of the game. And this is the only thing that we tested on our first test. And because this game has a repetitive mechanic, we could even see and measure retention on its first test. On the first iteration itself, because the core was so good and so addictive, we had almost 50% day 1 retention. That means that this is a very strong game. And what I'm saying about a strong core is relevant for all of our success stories, for Soap Cutting, for ASMR Slicing, for tie-dye, and this is very important to remember. And if everything that I'm talking about still doesn't seem real or just too good to be true, I like to share with you our latest success story, I Can Paint. Let's see how in this crazy coronavirus time, a small studio from Slovenia that doesn't even make games as their main business, decided to play with the idea of making hyper-casual game just last June. Our dear friend Primoz from Tricky Tribe introduced us to Dawn of Play just in July He said that we have to meet this studio and that they have an interesting game that we need to see. And Rotan from my team, that you will meet soon, contacted them, and with just 2 days they tested the first CPI test for the game. It's just started with a can of paint hanging on a pendulum. And I was extremely excited about this game because this trend was one of my favorite time killers on Facebook and Instagram. But I was also suspicious about it because I knew that many game developers have already tried that before and failed. But there was something about this game that they just made it right. There was accuracy that maybe others just missed. I found myself playing with this pendulum over and over again, loving the final outcome. It was very satisfying. And I waited for the next time that I'll play. It had one finger mechanic. It was satisfying, and the outcome was always beautiful. And so was the CPI. On the first CPI test that we did, we had 15-cent CPI. And since this game had a repetitive mechanic, we could also tested retention. And then we saw that we have around 37-day one retention. So we understand that we have an interesting, sorry, can we mute, please? Thanks. And so we understand that we have something interesting even without a metagame. So we knew that we need to be fast because sometimes this trend comes and goes. So you want to hit the iron while it's hot. So we added some of the metagame, and we tested the retention and saw that it just got better. We started working on UI of the game with our UI expert, had another run, and retention got better, like I said, and the CPI stayed the same. Since the average revenue per user was good, we decided to launch the game even when we knew that we have a lot of things to add to the game. So we started heavily live ops to the game, and we included amazing painting techniques and VIP clients and much choices and freedom for the players and allow them to express their creativity. I think that in simulation game, one of the most important things is to give players the choice and allowing them really to express themselves. And this way they can discover new things and keep coming back and be engaged for longer time. And I'm not sure the Dawn of Play thought that this is how their summer will look like when they're starting to work on their first hyper-casual game. But I'm not saying that every studio who will start working will launch their first game so fast. But I'm trying to say that it's more than possible. And when it's happening, it is sweeter than ever. And I'm always saying that every game can become a game changer. I'm saying it in all my talks, and I will say it again here. I really believe in that. So, by the way, if you feel like you have a great team, but you're not sure how to start, or you have an amazing idea and you don't know how to gamify it, you can always try to join one of our hubs. We have one hub in India and one hub in Israel. We will soon have a few more, so keep following. In our hubs, we're training teams and really injecting hyper-casual to them with our amazing publishing managers. So they're kind of going through a hyper-casual bootcamp. But if you didn't find a relevant hub for you, you can always contact our publishing managers and they will mentor and coach you, and they can do whatever they can to help you publish your first game. You will also be able to use our CLIK Dashboard, and that's actually a great opportunity to invite you to sign up for it, and you might get an invite to use it. It's a self-serve platform that with no hassle for you, it will be transparent and you can see all of your tests there. So to sum it up, if you'll ask me, what is the most important thing that I'd like you to take from my talk is to stop being afraid of failing or afraid of trying. I want you to just start taking your first steps in hyper casual, do some iterations, fail or success, it will come at the end. And I'm saying start small, build a small team, or hook up with some talents from the industry and let the exploration begin. And once you'll start developing hyper casual games, you might just find yourself having the best summer or winter you ever had. So thank you so much. And we can now move to some questions if you guys have. Let's see. Okay, Rotem and the panelists, you can start your questions. I don't see that there are any here.
Moria, we had one question in the Q&A, if you want to
great.
answer. How do you analyze the test results?
Sorry?
How do you analyze test results for your games?
How do we analyze the test results? Okay, we are using, at the beginning, we are using Facebook, and we are measuring the click-through ratio. And we have an amazing analytics team that helps us with the analysis of all of our games and tests. We are adding relevant events and tracking all the data.
All right, thanks. That was a question by Burak, and that was the only one we had in the Q&A. So thanks for that. All right. So first, thank you, Moria, for this interesting talk. And
thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Here. And have a great panel now, roundtable.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Great. So this was Moria. And of course, thank you very much. Great talk, very interesting, and something to see where we can utilize the time of the development team while they're in between projects, while they're working on the fantasy indie game. So we see how we can utilize our time better and to be more profitable, of course. So thanks for coming, everyone. My name is Rotem. I'm a publishing manager here in CrazyLabs. My mission is to help people create top chart games, and I'm very excited to have with me today two of our most successful partners. So first, Surojit is the co-founder of Firescore Interactive and the studio head in CrazyLabs India.
Hey guys.
Hey Surojit. Surojit is in charge, of course, of the top chart hit Soap Cutting, which is almost approaching 60 million downloads now. And you can see his latest hit, which is Acrylic Nails, in the #2 in the charts right now. Couldn't pass the number Among Us, but what can you do? And the other great partners that's here today is Primoz, the co-founder of and CEO of Tricky Tribe. Hey, Primoz.
Hello. Hi.
Primoz Studios is the one, of course, that brought us ASMR Slicing, which was the #1 sensation in May, top downloaded game overall, almost nearing 70 million downloads. And last but not least is actually a dear colleague and friend of mine, is Nir Meretsky. He's a man of many talents. He's also a publishing manager here in CrazyLabs, but he founded the Israeli Gaming Association, and he's a true gamer and a mentor to the entire Israeli community. Hey, Ian.
Hey.
So we're here today to answer questions on why go hyper, as well as other questions that people will send us along the way. So we'll start with the first question, and we'll start it with like something a little bit about our background. So we'll start, of course, with Surjit and Primoz. And the first question is, why did you go and decide to do hyper casual games? So we'll start with you, Surjit.
Right. So our story is probably the same story as maybe 10 or 20 other small studios in India. We were building a single product, a real money gaming product where you could play casual games and you could win money. And we spent a lot of time building this product. I think we spent around 4 months just building it. Then we did a small soft launch, and then we launched. And I think we kept working on it for a year, and we were still unable to get the unit economics right to be able to scale it. While that was happening, we were running out of money, of course. And so we reached the end of our runway. We were like 2 months without paying salary, and our team was getting really worried about whether the company was going to survive or not. And during this time, we needed to figure out how to make money. And we read an article that had come out on Pocket Gamer about how CrazyLabs had started investing in studios around the world to build hyper casual games. So my partner Karan, who's not here, big shout out to him. He had the bright idea to write a cold mail to CrazyLabs. And it just so happened that Moria, who was here before, she read the cold mail and she replied back to us. And that became the beginning of our partnership with CrazyLabs. And because of this partnership, it basically kept our studio alive. It allowed us to pursue hyper casual games without worrying about how we're going to pay salaries at the end of every month, for example. We had a direct path to success because the process of testing hyper casual games was extremely simple and methodical. So you go through each step of the process and you get data back. You understand exactly what you need to do to take the next step for your game. And it gives you great insight on how to pursue games in general, what concepts to pursue, what markets to approach, how to go about designing your next game. And, it was only 3 months into working with CrazyLabs, I think, till we had soap cutting. So just think about, for us, it was like a huge turnaround. 3 months before that, the company was almost dead, and 3 months later, we have a #1 hit game out all over the world.
So basically, it's like a do or die kind of act that you did.
Yeah.
You just ran out of money.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Primoz, you had Tinker Island before, right? That wasn't a hyper casual game. And then you started playing around with that. So how did that go for you?
Yes, so our big title was Tinker Island, which is a casual game, pixel art, where you actually have to read through through the equivalent of 130 pages of text to get to the end of the game. It has an end. And we launched that in 2016. It was a decent success. We launched it with a publishing partner. After that, we started working on another very high production value game called Journey Jake. So on both of these games, we spent 2 years building. And Tinker Island was successful and still going on, and Journey Jake just wasn't successful. The metrics simply weren't there. The CPI was good, but it wasn't sticky. People weren't playing long enough. So we had to decide what to do next. And we kind of we did some prototype days, and we got at the end about half of the studio, so 5-6 people, to work on hyper casual prototypes. A big help here was actually a good friend of mine who was already prototyping hyper casual games for 6 to 12 months at that point. And he walked me through everything that he has learned so far. So we got a jump start on what actually what the point is and how everything worked from this friend. And then we started shopping around different publishers, seeing what's the difference and testing out our early prototypes. And we landed with CrazyLabs. For the studio, it was actually quite fun to break away from 2-year plus projects with a lot of people involved, just a single game that takes a long time to do, to jumping and working on 4 projects simultaneously, and while one is in testing, work on another one. And pretty much the whole office was watching YouTube and Instagram 1 hour per day at somebody's computer and just, wow, try this, or look what I found yesterday. And we tested a lot of stuff, many crazy stuff, and at the end, ASMR slicing really stuck, and that was our big hit.
All right. Thanks. We'll move on to the next question. And from your like stories, of course, we narrowed it down to not tell the entire story, of course. But it sounds like, okay, you had some issues. You thought about, okay, let's allocate some people to start working on hyper casual games, and then amazing success. But we know it's not that easy to become a #1 hit. So we'll start with you again, Surajit. What do you think were like the main pain points that you started out? Because creating hyper casual games is very different than creating other sort of genres. So what took you guys some time to get to get used to?
I think probably the biggest pain point that we faced was just understanding that this was now a completely different set of users. Because we were so used to trying to build for users that had played Candy Crush, for example. And even Candy Crush is a slightly deeper game than what we saw in hyper casual in 2018 and 2019. These were much simpler games for a very different kind of audience. And that audience has kept growing. So I think just understanding that fact and knowing that, hey, the game design has to be different. The control mechanics have to be very different. They have to be much simpler. The overall gameplay, the depth of the gameplay, you can't go too deep. Your puzzle mechanics can't be very deep and complicated. Things like that. I think overall, those are some of the things that took us a while to grasp. But once you grasp it, it's much easier than to build the next game and the next game and the next game.
Okay, cool. Primoz?
Yeah, similar to, same as what Surajit said. Maybe to illustrate, so the problem was we're a team of guys. Well, all of us are guys right now, but making games for gamers mostly. So it was hard to understand what's cool for the user that we're making this for. And to illustrate it, we made this game, which was based on the idea that it's really hard to read metal band names, heavy metal band names. Maybe you've seen this meme joke going around where you have a tree trunk with roots, and the question is this a tree trunk with roots, or is it a heavy metal band name? So we built a game where you have to read texts hidden in this kind of metal bandy style, and we thought that was cool, and it absolutely wasn't. We made animals and we made it cute and whatever we thought people would like, but it was a huge flop, and it took us a few tries of different kind of these what we thought would be cool and crazy ideas to kind of figure out who these non-gamers or these hyper casual players are and what they actually like. And some of these lessons were painful. In the same example that I explained, also a huge mistake we did was we developed 80 levels from the first prototype, and each of the level was a handcrafted text with art around it, and it was a lot of content for a prototype. We would never do that anymore. So one level is usually enough for CTR, and I don't know, 8 to 12 levels or a few minutes of gameplay, versus this where it was like 3 hours of gameplay. We just had to learn it the hard way.
All right, thanks. Nir, I'm going to direct the same question to you, but in a different way, since Nir is mentoring over 30 Israeli studios that are creating hyper-casual games and also leading the Israeli hub. Most of these companies, they didn't come from a background of hyper-casual because there simply isn't much background or history to hyper-casual games. So how do you try to direct those studios to come in the right way and not saying, okay, you guys are completely off, or how do you try to move them away from casual into hyper-casual? And you're on mute. You're on mute, Nir.
Sorry. So I think most of the smaller, medium, small studios in Israel are making games around indie games or casual games. Some of them trying to make social casino games or stuff like this, but I'm talking about the guys that want to make good games. And some of them are making work for higher studios. So the idea was to approach them and give them the opportunity to make hyper-casual game as another stream of business, another kind of business they can do while they are in idle mode, game studio idle, and try to embed it in their workflow. So some of them did just one try, and maybe the CPI was successful, so they understand they know how to make it, and try to work on it. The others just didn't anything else to do during the Corona lockdown. Each one got different reasons why he wanted to approach it, but the general idea was the same. You have a chance. We will help you. We will help you in Hebrew. And we will try to take you where we took Primus and Sudit in a very similar way. Of course, each studio work differently and different people, different talents. But this is the idea, to go together as a partners and go forward. Now you're on mute.
We'll move on, and we kind of answered the next question we had, but I want to try to focus you guys on when you're approaching a new game, and you've created a lot of games, each one of you. What is the one thing that you say if you come to developers right now, and there's a lot of them watching you, what is the one thing you say to them when they're approaching a new game? What is the most important thing? Sojit?
The way the market is now, we tell developers to try and focus on marketability. How big of a market is there for your concept? Because I think once the game has marketability, then there are a lot of things that can be done to gamify that idea. Okay, cool.
Primoz?
Yes. So, but the question is, how do you decide what is marketable? And in our case, we try to find something that either has, trending on social media, lots of YouTube videos, or something that really looks cool, but also at the same time try to think how you can actually play this. Not so much gamify it, like how to do the next, but can you even actually use your fingers to recreate that experience that looks good on social media in a video.
Mm-hmm. All right, great tip. Nir, same question to you. When you're directing your studios to create a new game, what is the most important thing that you're telling them? This is the most important thing that you're now approaching a new game.
I think the most important thing is, well, there are a lot of them, but let's choose one. Not to fall in love with the idea. We are trying an idea. If it's not a good idea, nothing happened. It doesn't say anything about the studio. It's the players which are not good. Let's move forward for the next game and try it. And we'll try to find a game, a trend that both is very trendy and could bring a lot of people and also will be fun to gamify. If we are working on an idea that will not be fun to gamify, don't bother, let's move on. Or find the right way to do it, like soap cutting.
All right, thanks. The next question I think is one of my favorites. So we're getting into a time right now where a lot of us are working remotely. I mean, lucky for other countries than unlucky for some of us, people are working remotely, and when you're leading a team of developers, it's kind of hard, of course, to control everyone and make sure everyone's on the same page. So how is working remotely affecting you, especially when you're working on the project, and let's say that not everyone is super excited about? And to be honest, when we started working on acrylic nails, it's not my cup of tea, right? I'm not an acrylic nails enthusiast, and I had to watch hours and hours of acrylic nail videos on YouTube, and I'm sure you guys did as well. And
This is not a foot clinic.
Okay.
So,
Can you show your nails now?
so, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy convincing people, and I'm sure that, you know, programming this game and even ASMR slicing and even other games that are not your usual typical games that you would create, how do you try to get everyone on board, especially at these times that you're working remotely and you can't just, you know, have these one-on-one talks every day? Sojit?
It's hard. It's really hard to suddenly go from working in the office to working from home, especially when it comes to, you know, these simulation games like ASMR slicing or like soap cutting, or even acrylic nails, because, you know, we're paying attention to very small details in these games, and sometimes, you know, just with the core mechanics, or, you know, with how the knife moves in both those games, in slicing and in soap cutting probably, you know, it's hard to communicate exactly what you want to do to the developer who's sitting, you know, 10 miles away and on the phone or on a Zoom call. So it's very hard. I think you can only get there with practice. And what we resorted to doing is that we all take turns kind of working on the project, you know, at the same time doing separate things, and then merging it all together at once. I think that's just common development practice, but it's something that we weren't doing before when we were working offline. And it's something that we started doing now because we've gone remote.
All right, thank you. Primoz?
So we launched our game during lockdown, so we can't complain about remote work. It apparently works for us. We found that having this, let's say, creative meetings was quite difficult, figuring out what to do next or deciding on different, because it's hard to raise voice or hard to jump into someone's word when you're talking over Google or Zoom or whatever. But buying in, so getting someone on board, hasn't been that difficult, maybe because we're a bit cynical here, and every prototype we do, one guy says, kill it, and the other guy says, where's the fun in that? So in remote, you can do the same, but we still carry on making it, and some of them turn out to be fun. Some of them don't have the fun in it that's needed. So we didn't have a problem with getting people more excited than we do in real life, face to face.
All right, lucky you. I mean, yeah, we launched ASMR slicing during lockdown, and it was hard. I mean, I felt it's being harder, but if you said, you know, if you say it's been not that difficult for you, then great.
I'm saying it's the only hit we launched and it was during lockdown, so apparently it's not too bad.
Second wave is coming, so be prepared.
So Neil, same question to you. You're also leading the Israeli hub, and right now Israel is in lockdown, and your teams are at home, and they're not even working from same homes. Of course, they're different families. So how do you get these guys on board?
So luckily we started the hub 2 months ago. So we had almost 2 full months working every day with the studios in the hub. So I think they are like warmed up for the lockdown, and they can now run the full operation of, you know, 2, 3, 4 people working on the same game from home. Everybody know what they need to do and everything, so it's easier. But as you know, publishing managers usually work remotely with the studios. So for us, for me, it's almost the same to work from my home or from the office with the studios. And I just need the studio to also do the same internally. So in general, it's not a big difference. We do have this opportunity of a lot of people playing more games during the Corona time. So we do have a big opportunity here to find more successful games and to get more downloads, more interesting projects. So we're trying to take advantage of it.
All right, thanks. We're going to have last question before we go to Q&A from our viewers. So from your experience, and this is mainly pointed to Surajit and Primoz, what would you say are the most important things that a studio should look out for when you're talking to hyper-casual publishers? Because there's a lot, they're diverse, everyone is offering different things. So what would you say would be good questions to ask, good things to look out for? Surajit?
So, yeah, I think a few things. So we did work with another publisher way back in 2018 as well. And one of the things that we felt at that time was that we were not getting any, face-to-face connection with a publishing manager. We weren't getting feedback on the ideas we were submitting. We weren't getting, the training that we needed to understand hyper-casual. And that all changed when we started working with you guys, especially you, Rotten, were very, active with communicating with us. So I think the first thing, and maybe two things that were very important for us at least, was communication and transparency. Because those two things really helped us understand hyper-casual very fast. And it taught us that we needed to learn to just accept failure and keep moving to the next idea.
All right, thanks. Primoz?
Yeah, so we tested games with a bunch of publishers. A few things that I find important. So one is that the successful publisher that's making money, I find it important that they somehow put their skin in the game, that they somehow have something to lose, that you're not just churning out prototypes for free, that they at least have to. I find that important. So be it either, I don't know, advanced payments or guarantees or something like that, just means that they're more serious about it than just getting free prototypes. Same thing as Surajit said, I find also very important. So quick responses and availability to speak with someone who's not just a scout. Sometimes some of the publishers, they have a scout and they groom you and they talk with you and you develop a relationship. But as soon as you start working, it's someone else that you have to go through the experience again, and maybe you don't even get there, and maybe they reply on Slack every 3 days and so on. So this is very important because you have experience with what you're doing right now, maybe 3-4 prototypes, and it's really great that you're able to speak with someone who has gone over 20, 30, 40 games and I don't know, 10 releases, hits, and they share the experience that they have. And the last thing also important is, well, mostly it's Unity, but some companies also work with other. So to have this kind of same technology and also same focus, like CrazyLabs, for example, has a pretty good track record of these simulation games, low CPI and really huge scale. Some other publishers may be more into, little elements of idle or more gamified, like action gamified, like runners and jumping and a bit of violence maybe. So also genre, I mean, having experience from the genre and applying it to your project from the publisher's experience is also helpful.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, very good points. I mean, first, having someone that has the experience of the games that you're releasing is important, and of course, to put their skin in the game is a really good is a really good point. I mean, you want someone to really take you seriously, and if they invest in it and also invest you as a developer, it's you're getting it eventually. We have a few more questions from the Q&A, and I found a question that I really liked. So I know that we don't have a lot of time yet, but this is something that mainly applies to Nir and Primoz, which is a question that we had, is when to stop a game and when to keep going. And Nir, I'm going to let you take it first. I worked with the three of you, of course, and Surajit already released 2 games. He didn't have too many failures, and the ones that failed, he killed fast. Primoz, we had 2 long iterations on 2 of his games that took around a year before we released ASMR slicing. And Nir also has been working with us for a while now, and he had to kill a game after a long process of iterations, alpha tests, soft launches. And let's start with you, Nir. I mean, the question is always the same. When do I keep going and testing? And, I'm really close to releasing the game and getting the gold. And when is the time to say, okay, you know what? That's it. We'll move to the next project.
So of course there is no easy answer for this question, but I think it's a balance between how much more production time and assets and resources we need to try again, and if we have enough, like a big enough idea to change something that will make enough influence on the thing that we want to fix. Of course, if it's CPI or it's a retention. So we try to find the balance each time. We stop, we see a failed test, for example, let's say a day 1 retention test. And then we look on the results and we think, do we have something that will be easy to change or not too much hard to change that could make a big difference? And if the answer is no, or not for now, we can think about it later maybe, or put it aside and move on to the next game. So we will kill it. But sometimes the other way around, we have like 3 ideas. Let's check the first one. We'll see the influence. If it have a big change, let's move on this direction. Other than that, let's try another one. And sometimes after we kill a game, there's a new idea is coming up, and we said maybe we shouldn't kill it, maybe we should try again, maybe just another video. But the idea is to do it on the right time. And I'm sure for each game it's different time, and we killed a few games that was so close to be a success, and were great games, and I'm sad that they're gone, but that's what must be done. So again, each game with his own reasons. You're on mute, Rotten.
I'm not.
No.
So you're just quiet.
Thank you, Nir. Primoz?
So my answer would be yesterday. Yeah, kill it sooner than you think is right. And again, we had to learn the hard way a lot of this stuff. So we made 20 prototypes, and some of them only video tests, some of them not even tests. And in all those prototypes, I can firmly say that only in one case we actually improved the game. And the change was huge. So we went from blocky cubes and colors and shapes to a theme, to a city with cars, for example. And also some mechanics were changed, but only then were the KPIs really improved. Like CPI went down by over 50%, and day 1 retention went from like 20, 30 to 50 around. That was one example. In all other examples, we improved the game, a little bit. Sometimes, mostly, statistically insignificant. So we found it really, really hard to do that one right change. And the one hit that we made, the ASMR slicing, even before we put it into launch, I showed it to my brother, and the other people in the company also showed it around to their friends and came back with feedbacks. And when I went to visit my father over the weekend, he already knew about it and played it because my brother showed it. And then I met a friend on the street and someone else, that a common friend of mine also showed. So that one we really knew is something special, and the CPI test proved it. But the other games, yeah, just kill it sooner than you think is right. I mean, do try a few things just to make sure, but yeah, sooner. That's my answer. And yeah, we also don't do it yet because, you know,
Yeah.
just one thing and we can make it work.
Thanks. It's never an easy decision, and it's never, you know, don't know when you're 1 inch from success and when you're just wasting time. We have a lot more questions, but we are out of time. So first, I want to thank you all for being here and being with us. And thank you for the members of our panel, Surojit, Primoz, Nir, thanks a lot. I know that the next top chart hit is, again, a week away. Of course, every week there's a new top chart hit. And I really hope that your answers today inspired people and helped them and helped many studios to move to the right direction. So thanks everyone for watching. Feel free to send us more questions, more game videos. You can have the names, of course, of all the panelists on LinkedIn and send us your questions if you want to. So guys, thanks a lot for coming and stay safe.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Everyone,
Bye.
thanks a lot.